welcome back to the channel. Today we are making the 8.0.0 tier list. Now, for this tier list, we're going to do something different. We're going to completely change things from the last time I did a tier list. First thing, here's how I'm going to change how we're going to be grading the killers. The grading is still going to be the same for the most part. However, whenever it comes to like the actual tier list here, I am not going to make it so it's in any particular order within the tiers. If I say someone's the best or the weakest, I will specify, but for the most part, unless I say otherwise, assume that everyone on the tier list is on the same level. If they share the same tier, it means they're just as good. Because I feel like I'm only doing this so it's easier on me, as I feel like if I were to go and make in order from like highest D to lowest D, there's like too much nuance and all that, you know? They're like very opinionated. I want to remain more objective, per se. Oh. And I think that's like really the only change I'm going to be doing. So it's going to be slightly different. They are going to be in no particular order unless I state otherwise. Alright. First, and oh yeah, no. I forgot to mention this other thing. I'm not going to be doing in order of release. I'm just going to do D to S tier. Make things a bit simpler on me. Okay, let's just get on with this. Alright, first up, we're going to be putting Freddy in the D tier. Right? I would say he is by far the worst killer in the game. Yeah, this is what I mean when I was saying earlier. Freddy, he is for me the worst character in the game. Now you might think, oh well, why? What about Trapper? What about Myers? Here's the thing about what makes Freddy bad, and I'll go into detail later on why I think he's worse than Trapper and Myers. Freddy, he has his blood pools that you can use to slow survivors, and with add-ons you can be able to change that to pallets, and you also have a teleport. The problem with this is, although this sounds good on paper, in practice, this is actually kind of garbage. First of all, the dream snares and the dream pellets by proxy only work whenever the survivor is asleep. So if the survivor is constantly making sure they stay awake, they do jack and shit. Second of all, they are really easy to dodge. They are very easy to dodge, and they don't slow for nearly as long as Clown's bottles. They slow for the same amount. Excuse me. They slow for the same amount, but Clown slows for longer. So which is why Clown's, and also it's a bigger radius. His bottles cover a bigger radius, while his is about like 6 inches, and they have to actively step on it. So yeah. As for the pallets, if you stay awake, you can completely bypass the pallets entirely. And also, they are very easy to like keep track of. All you have to do is just remember the pallets you dropped. Just remember where the pallets you dropped are, and assume that those are fake now. Also, another thing that with Freddy, if you're running snares, the survivors know that you don't have pellets, so they don't have to be cautious, and vice versa. So basically, because you can only use one or the other, and you can't use both, you can assume like, oh, he's running snares, that means he doesn't have pellets. Oh, he's running pellets, it means he doesn't have snares. And now, finally, we get to the part of what makes Freddy worse than Trapper and worse than Myers, in my opinion. First thing is when it comes to the teleport. The teleport has an obnoxiously long cooldown. That's the first problem with it. Second thing, you cannot teleport to completed generators or blocked generators, meaning your power gets worse as the game goes on. And thirdly, the third thing of what makes him worse than Trapper, worse than Myers, and I think this is the most important, his add-ons are completely garbage. There are only 3 good add-ons. He only has 3 good ones. And that's the red paintbrush, the pill bottle, and then the new one they have, the one where you get killer instinct whenever you teleport to a generator. And that's it. Everything else is either doesn't do much to help with it not having a big enough numbers, or they are counterintuitive to your power. For example, the dress add-ons that makes it some skill checks are harder when you're asleep. This is very counterintuitive, as with Freddy, if you fail a skill check, you wake up. You don't want the survivors to wake up because it means they're not affected by your teleport bullshit, and they're not affected by your fucking dream stuff. So they ended up being counterintuitive. And also, to add on to the fact, it's super easy to wake up from the dream world. As you have 3 ways you can wake up. You can have a fellow survivor wake you up. You can be able to find an alarm clock, which gives you a hefty immunity to the dream world. Like 60 seconds of you not being able to go to sleep. 60 seconds of you being making the killer an M1 killer. And the third way is by, as I said, simply failing a skill check. And hell, there's even a 4th way, and that's you getting hooked. So yeah, this is why, in my eyes, Freddy is the worst killer in the game, and is in desperate need of a rework. Next up, we're going to put Trapper. Trapper is going to be up here, right after Freddy. So with Trapper, like, here's why Trapper sucks. You don't start with all your traps from the get-go. And another thing is that you have to pick up the traps manually. If you're too far from your traps, you don't get any value, as they could just remove the trap themselves and they get away for free. They don't even put them in Deep Wound's base kit. The traps are also very easy to spot. And because the game is starting to become more fast-paced, you end up wasting a lot of your time setting down traps When with other killers, you could be putting on pressure super early. The traps do not do enough to help. They at least do more than Freddy's snares. Although he does have the added benefit of the maps being smaller, and thus not needing as much movement tools. But still, like, with all the other things, it does definitely makes a D tier, which is why also Freddy's teleport cannot be considered making him good. Because maps have been getting smaller and smaller, and thus we're needing less and less reliance on movement tools. But he's good. And also, what sets him apart from Freddy is that he actually has good add-ons. That's, I would say, his only strength, is that he has good add-ons. If you want to sweat, you have great add-ons to fall back on. Alright, next up, we have Mr. Myers. With Michael, his problems, he has a very slow early game like Trapper, where he starts the game off as basically the weakest killer. You are at 4-0 movement speed. Not a 4-4 like Huntress or fucking Hag. No, you're 4-4, which aside from Nurse, is the slowest killer in the game. You are 4-4, and you have a worse lunge than everyone else. So you are basically worse than an M1 killer at tier 1. So you have to waste your early game trying to become a normal M1 killer with a slightly smaller terror radius. Actually, I wouldn't say it's slightly, it's more 16 meters, but still. You waste your early game trying to become a normal M1 killer with a smaller terror radius. And the next problem with Myers is that his tier 3 does not do enough. You get 60 seconds of everyone being exposed, and you get some vault speed, and that's it. That's about all you get. 60 seconds of expose and extra vault speed, which for the most part does basically fuck and all. If the survivor side is split up, or if it's a big map, you are fucked. You are generally going to get 1 or 2 downs with him, and then that's it. And there's also the fact that the timer does not pause when you pick up survivors, thus forcing you to a more slug-heavy playstyle, which on its own is not a bad thing. Some killers like Oni and Twins who are slug-heavy, they still are pretty good, but they're at least good at slugging. They slug because they're good at it. Myers slugs because he has no other choice. Like, and also the fact that Myers is very, very heavily, like Trapper, very heavily add-on reliant. And like, if you, with his best add-ons being the J. Myers Memorial and the Tombstone add-ons, that would put you up to at least B tier, I would say. It would make you a B tier killer. But like, if you need add-ons in order to be able to compete with everyone else, then you're not a good killer in my eyes. And that's why he's going to remain at D tier. Next up, we are going to be moving on to the C tier. These are going to be the slightly weak ones, whereas the D tier is going to be the absolute dog shit killers that I do not recommend you use if you're trying to win. Next up, we're moving up to C tier, and our first killer, let's see, which one should we start with? Let's start with our boy Legion. Since we're not doing it in any particular order, it doesn't matter. So we're doing it, we're just going to start with Legion. Now, with Legion, You know, you run fast, it can chain stabs. The problem with Legion is he suffers on big maps. If the survivors split up, you are basically an M1 killer with pretty much no power. So if they like split up, you don't get your fifth stab, and it can force you to chase the survivors down as a normal M1 killer. Yeah. His add-ons are alright. They're alright. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say about Legion. Like, yeah, he's gonna be right there. Okay, next up, we're going to go with Ghostface. Why not Ghostface? Alright, with Ghostface. Uh he he has his he has his stealth, which can be pretty helpful, although stealth is not really usually very optimal. And he can get some good scares, but like if the survivors know that there's a ghost face in the game, they're going to be out, they're going to be keeping a lookout, so it's going to be very hard for you to like get the drop on people. And there's also the fact that his reveal mechanics are pretty janky. Right now it's starting to favor towards the survivors. And also, without his stealth and his one-shot, he is basically an M1 killer with nothing to help him out in the chase. So he's going to struggle on most loops, whereas other killers would not struggle so much. So that's why he's going to be at the C tier. Next up, let's go with I would say let's go with we'll go with Trickster. Yeah, Trickster, he's gonna be in the C tier as with his knives. If you're going up, he's very map dependent, as with his knives. If you get in an indoor map with a lot of line of, or a map with a lot of line of sight blockers, he's going to suffer very heavily. He can't, although his knives can go as far as Huntress hatchets because of how inaccurate his knives are at long ranges. You're going to be generally a mid to close range killer, as his knives get very inaccurate at long ranges. They are also going to suffer on big maps. You at least have the added benefit of 115, and also you have to reload at lockers, which can also make you RNG dependent. And that's where we're going to leave Trickster. Next up, we have the Dredge. Now, with Dredge, the lockers problem that Trickster has is on Dredge, but it's amplified because he relies on lockers as half of his power. So, any locker problems that Trickster or maybe Huntress has is amplified on him, making him incredibly map dependent and also RNG dependent, because if you get bad locker spawns and you have this one generator on the map with no nearby lockers, you're not going to be able to defend that generator. You do have your strongest asset is definitely going to be your remnant, but even then that can be mind gamed, and it's a 50-50. And if your entire strength is relying on that 50-50, then you're probably not going to be a very good killer. You do have your Nightfall, which gives you undetectable and faster teleport speed. The issue is that you can't teleport to lockers outside of nightfall to cut people off because the teleport is too slow. And so you can only teleport to lockers to cut people off inside nightfall. Nightfall is limited duration on that, which in itself is not a problem. But yeah. Anyways, you're super loud, so the undetectable makes no difference, as you have directional audio coming from you at every second. So it doesn't matter if you're undetectable or not, people will still be able to know exactly where you are. Also, locks. The fact that Dredge has a teleport priority system that prioritizes locked lockers over unlocked lockers. So you can lock one locker, and then the Dredge will be forced to teleport to that locker instead of the one next to it. Even if you were targeting the other locker specifically, you will still teleport to the one next to it if it's locked. And the locks also heavily prevent you from you being able to ambush people, as you have to spend 5 seconds to break out of that locker, allowing the survivor ample time to get to a safe loop, and thus ruining your cutoff. And that he's also can be very add-on reliant as well. His base kit's kind of garbage, and you're gonna be relying on your add-ons. That will also bring him down. All that combined will make him C tier, and I think that is gonna be it for the C tier. Next up, we're gonna be moving on to B tier. For our first candidate of the B tier, we are going to be putting up actually, wait, hang on, I forgot someone for C tier. Our newest candidate for the C tier, I'm going to be putting up Vecna. Now, if this was launch Vecna, if I was making this at launch, he would be up at A tier easily. But with all the nerfs he's been getting and nothing to really compensate for those nerfs, I would say this brings him down to C. Here's the reason why. His cooldowns, although they did cut it in half from the PTB, are still very lengthy. They're still very lengthy. So running the add-on to reduce the cooldown for those is still going to be his best. His flight sucks. Well, his Flight of the Damned sucks, as you can very easily dodge it by crouching, and they made it even easier to avoid due to them making the skeletons louder, thus making it even easier to avoid. The only way you're going to be able to get consistent hits using flight is if you either place it. The only consistent way you're going to be able to get consistent hits is if you place it down right on top of them. That is the only way you're going to get consistent hits, is placing it down right on top of them. His fly is actually very good. The only issue is, since we're moving away from larger maps, it's not really as necessary. The Smelling Sphere, great tracking, and can disable magic items. However, again, not really necessary. Like, base kit tracking does help a little bit, but usually it's not the end all be all, and it isn't by itself strong. His best spell, his magic hand, has been significantly nerfed since live, as they keep on nerfing it, like making it take longer to lift up a pallet. There's also the fact that with mage hand, when you lift up a pallet, it means that a survivor will be able to use that pallet later down the road, so you're not really getting rid of it. You're basically temporarily bypassing it. Basically. They also nerfed one of his best add-ons, the Vorpal Sword, so it takes longer. And they also completely reworked his Ring of Telekinesis to something that's absolutely, completely useless. And, yeah. C tier. Maybe controversial to some, but honestly, that's how I feel. I feel like he's been hit with too many nerfs to really warrant him being good. Maybe if I was feeling generous, I would put him in B tier, but honestly, if I'm brutally honest, I'm feeling like he's right now sitting at C tier. He's kind of a sad state, and I really kind of don't want to play him with like all these nerfs at the moment. So yeah, C tier. Alright, now we move on to B tier. First up, Wraith. He has great movement, which although isn't necessary, does certainly help. And he also has some fairly decent stealth. You can even use the speed boost coming out of stealth as a sort of anti-loop. The only downside is you can't hit people when cloaked. You have to spend some time uncloaking. But outside a cloak, you are an M1 killer, and you will have to deal with pallets like an M1 killer. But I would say what sets him apart from like someone like Vecna, he has very good add-ons, really good add-ons. Almost all of his add-ons are fantastic, which I think is what sets him apart from someone like Vecna. He has fantastic add-ons. Almost every one of them are good. And that's why he's going to be at the B tier. Next up at the B tier, we're going to put Doc. We're going to put Doc at B tier. With Doc, you have almost everything you'd want out of a killer. You want some tracking? Boom, you got tracking. You want some passive slowdown? Madness, shocking, screaming. You want some anti-loop? You got some anti-loop. You want great add-ons? You got great add-ons. Although there are some that are a bit memey, like the ring, like the one that makes your shock radius a ring instead of the normal cone. But still, he has great add-ons. The only downside is that Ping can really screw him over. And he will struggle massively on the shorter loops, as his shock will pretty much become useless. He struggles at short loops as you slow down considerably, plus the delay, meaning you can't really use the shock at the short loops. Other than that, he's great. Love him. Next up, let's put Bubba. Next up with Bubba. He got massively buffed in this patch, and he feels great. They made it so it's harder to go into tantrum. You can almost hug tech that shit with how precise it is, and it feels great. They also made his beast scratches and award-winning chili base kit, so that's great. He's much more consistent now, not so reliant on the chili add-ons and the beast scratch add-ons. The only downside is he does struggle with windows, which you would still need bamboozle for. He struggles with window loops, and he also does not really have much of a movement tool. And if you're able to force him to like take not be able to use the chainsaw, he becomes an M1 killer with no power. As aside from his chainsaw, he doesn't really have anything else. And that's why he's going to be at the B tier. Next up, we're going to go Deathslinger. A favorite of mine. What puts him at B tier is his great anti-loop ability with his harpoon. The problem is that it's 18 meters. The killer's 110 with a 32-meter terror radius, making it easy for survivors to just simply hold W against this killer. In fact, I would say this makes him the only ranged killer where you could hold W against him. And also, his add-ons suck. And there's the fact that, aside from his anti-loop, he doesn't really have anything else going for him. He's a one-trick pony, basically. He's good at one thing and one thing only, and that is chasing. Also, some walls can screw him over. If you got like a long wall or line of sight blockers, there's absolutely nothing he can do. So if you get thrown on Larry's, good luck. And that's going to be putting him at B tier. Next up, we're going to put the Clown. He did get buffed a while back, which I think definitely helps him put him in the B tier. He basically is able to do what Freddy does, in my opinion, but better. He has a slow that slows for longer, although it's the same amount, it slows for longer, and you also have the combination of the yellow bottles, which they buffed and made better, and now I think that they're actually pretty decent now. You make it very easy for you to be able to go and deal with any loops. Although if you have a god palette, there's not much Clown can do about it. He struggles against strong loops, so it's not completely dominant. And also, there is the fact that he's sort of like Deathslinger, where he's kind of a one-trick, but at the same time, he does at least have his yellow bottles for like a form of movement. Also, aside from a handful of add-ons, his add-ons are just kind of mid. Like, they're not, aside from like Redhead's Pinky Finger or whatnot, there's nothing really to write home about his add-ons. So yeah, he's gonna be right there. Next up, we're gonna be putting the Pig. Pig, I think, is, before I would say C tier, before like the buffs, now I would say she's B tier. Her ambush is actually a fairly decent anti-loop tool. And although it can't really shut down some of the strongest loops, it can shut down a pretty good portion of the loops in this game. You have no movement tool though, which you're going to struggle a bit on the larger maps. And you also have your head traps, which provides fairly decent slowdown. Although she is prone to the whole W strat, so you do gotta keep that in mind. And her add-ons are actually not bad. She is a good killer, but she's not as good as someone on the A tier. Yeah, anyways, that's gonna be it for Pig, and now moving on, we are going to be putting in Demo, the most balanced killer in the game, what all killers should strive towards. I don't have much bad things to say about Demo. He has his shred ability, which is actually pretty good. It's not oppressive, but it's actually very good when you learn how to use it. Although the fact that I can fairly easily, it's fairly telegraphed, making it not all powering, which is honestly what I would say makes Vecna so weak, is all of his shit is telegraphed so much. Of why I think Vecna's weak. But with Demo, it's at least not as telegraphed. And you have your portals, which can be a very good movement tool. The only downside to that is you cannot replace them after you place one down. You have to wait until the survivors go and you have to wait until the survivors go and remove them for you to be able to get that portal back. I would love to see a change where like you could be able to replace the oldest portal with the newest one. I love to see something like that. And his add-ons, they are actually fairly good. And he's also not add-on reliant either, so that does also help. And yeah, that's where Demo is gonna be. Next up, let's see, we are going to be putting the Knight. Now, Knight is going to be getting changed in the next patch. They are giving him a bit of a rework. I'm not going to be talking about those changes as one. I haven't played those changes. And so I'm going to wait until those changes go to live before I pass judgment on his placement. We're going over how he is now, not how he's going to be in the future. We're talking about now. And right now, he is fairly solid. He has a decent anti-loop tool with the guards. You can place it down right in the loop, and the survivor is forced to have to deal with that. Although you do need Map of the Realm in order to make this work, because otherwise the survivor can just run away and the guard will be just standing there with their thumbs up their ass. Also, what doesn't make him A tier is that his guards are kind of stupid. Like, they do dumb things, and they can be very buggy. Also, aside from Map of the Realm, his add-ons are just kinda meh. Like, his add-ons are like nothing crazy or anything. Like, nothing to really be worth talking about. Yeah, and that's where he's going to be. Following suit, we are going to be putting Skull Merchant in the B tier as well. Here are the benefits with Skull Merchant. Number 1, you have a great anti-loop tool with your drones. Uh, you get haste and whatnot for each person you have tracked. They can take away a health state and also further slow the survivor the more they get scanned by it. Now here's why they're not going to be an A tier. First thing, you can crouch under the the things, the beams, and completely avoid it. She's also countered by hold W. And also, if there's a lot of line of sight blockers, she does not really do as well. But other than that, that is gonna make her B tier. Oh yeah, also, there is quite a few people who don't know how to counter Skull Merchant, and you're probably gonna get a lot of DCs. So I think that also helps a bit. Although it's not really a character thing, not part of her kit, but it does help that there's quite a few people who don't know how to counter Skull Merchant. Yeah, and that's going to be at B tier. Next up, we are going to be putting, let's see, let's go with Nemesis. Nemesis, great, anti-loop tool with your tentacle. You do have to spend a bit of time, building up your tier 2, but you're not punished, as heavily as someone say Miners. You're at least still an M1 killer. But yeah, you get you make him pretty much one of the best pallet shredders in the entire game, if not the best pallet shredder, as you can move while destroying the pallet. And you can also destroy the pallet super quickly in tier 2. The two things that hold him back, actually three things that hold him back. He is subject to crouch teching. Crouch teching pretty much hard counters him. It does work on other killers such as Bubba, Billy, Blight, whatnot, but I would say out of all the characters in the game, Nemesis is the one that suffers from crouch teching the most. And if you don't know what crouch teching is, basically it's when the survivor they stand at a spot where like there's a slight alteration altitude difference, and then a crouch, or if there's like something like there's like something slightly blocking them and they crouch, it basically makes it so it doesn't register you hitting, even if the attack was literally right on top of them. It doesn't work due to how the wall and survivor hitbox collision works. And Nemesis is definitely by far the worst contender, especially if you're playing on one of the swamp maps like Grim Pantry. Those have windows that are unusually taller than other windows, making you and so you can crouch tick at every single window, and you'll never get hit by the whip. And it basically makes it so you can't really do shit about it. Also, his zombies run off AI like Night Scars, and they are also pretty fucking stupid. They'll get stuck in places. They'll not chase survivors that they literally see right in front of their face sometimes. And in certain situations could end up giving them, the survivor, a speed boost as well. Also, his add-ons are just garbage. His add-ons are bad. Like, there's only two types of add-ons that are really worth it, and that is Marvin's Blood and the add-ons that make it so the zombies move faster. Because by default, the zombies are slow as shit. Although when they work, but most of the time they don't. That's why he's going to be at the B tier. Alright, next up. Oh, wait, I forgot a character for C tier. Sadako. I forgot Sadako for C tier. Yeah, anyways, Sadako. She's going to be at C tier because she is not. She's an M1 killer with stealth. Her best asset is the condemn mechanic, but you still have to chase people down as an M1 killer, which is her biggest downside. That she is an M1 killer with nothing to help her out in the chase department, and that's why they're going to be at the C tier. Oh, excuse me, I had to get a drink of water. Alright, anyways. Next up, we are going to be putting, let's say, we'll go Singularity. Singularity is going to be in B tier. He has alright add-ons. He has some good ones. Most of them are just kind of meh. You have your, you get a lot of intel from your biopods. And your overclock mode can be very helpful. Well, especially whenever you're teleporting right behind them, meaning you can be around the map pretty easily. The problem is that he suffers from line of sight blockers, and the fact that EMPs are so plentiful, which they seem to like. It seems like they're going to be changing that in the next one. As of right in the next patch, but as of right now, he's going to be at B tier. All right, next up, we are going to be putting the Unknown up there next. Now, with the Unknown, you have your teleport, which you can use to cut people off. It's instantaneous, pretty much. And because it's not limited to, it's only limited to where you are standing, as it creates automatically. And with the combination of spamming your power button, you could pretty much control where you put your hallucinations. They could put it in a loop, and you can use it to cut people off. Your weekend can and also add to a very great anti-loop tool. His add-ons are okay. I guess I don't really have any strong feelings about the add-ons. His add-ons are okay. I would say his only downsides are the weekends can be kind of easy to remove, and also the fact that, like Nemesis, you have to hit him twice with your power in order to get health state, and that could add to the chase time being a bit longer. Also, it is deceptively hard to hit people with your UVX. It is deceptively hard. But yeah, he's gonna be at the B tier. Oh, hang on. I think I messed up. Yeah, wait. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Anyways, next up, I believe it is now time. Oh wait, no, hang on. I got one more for the B tier, and that is gonna be Pinhead. You have great gen pressure with your chain hunts. It literally prevents survivors from doing the generators without, because each chain interrupts actions, and you're getting constantly spammed with chains, making it physically impossible for you to work on a generator. So you have to actually play around the box mechanic. And if you're a good pinhead, you know where the box. You'll be able to figure out where the box is and be able to play around the box. Your anti-loop is pretty alright. And also, uh, it you also have some pretty great add-ons as well. The only downsides to Pinhead is that with his anti-loop, it's by far the weakest aspect of his kit. Uh, if you uh use your chains, your chain anti-loop tool, sometimes as it work as you can still drop pellets while you're being hit with chains. And also against coordinated teams that like if the survivor team is good at managing the box, there is not very much you can do about it. Yeah, that's why he's gonna be at the B tier. Alright, now we're moving up to the A tier. First one for the A tier is going to be Chucky. They did nerf his scamper, so it's now you can now only do it whenever whenever you're using slice and dice, and not just whenever you're you cannot manually scamper anymore. But they did reduce his cooldown significantly. Honestly, the only reason why Chucky's still an A tier is because of two reasons. One, his small stature that makes it so you can't see him over loops, over really any loop. And that contributes to making him very hard to loop by default, because you can't see him over loops, so you don't know what he's going to do half the time. You do have the footfalls, but they can be a bit misleading. And then the second thing of what is keeping him in A tier is his slice and dice. It is so fucking good. You could literally shut down most loops with the scamper. Hell, you could pretty much shut down almost all the loops with slice and dice. The only downside is it's gonna suffer a bit on the larger maps, and also he's going to not do so well against pallets and windows anymore. But if you can hit them before they reach the pallet or before they reach the window, he is so fucking good. Next up, we are going to be putting Billy. Billy, you have great map traversal. You have a one-shot down. You can deal with pallets fairly easily. And with your curving techniques and whatnot, you can be able to deal with most loops. You do suffer with windows, like with Bubba, but that's not as much of a problem. Also, you have great add-ons, and Overdrive can feel very, very oppressive. What's stopping him from going into the S tier, though, is the fact that if the survivors are able to play around the windows and pallets very effectively, you become an M1 killer, and there's not much you can do about it. Also, you're going to suffer on maps. You're very map dependent, as if you're getting an indoor map, you're probably going to be bumping into walls a lot of the time. Also, his collision can be a bit iffy. You could sometimes end up bumping on nothing. Like, you could bump on like a small pebble, or on the slight corner of a wall. So yeah, that's why he's not going to be an S tier. Next up for the A tier, we're going to be putting Xenomorph. Now with Xenomorph, you have your tail attack, which is very, very good. If you can hit your consistent tail attacks, it can feel very oppressive. And also you have a fantastic map traversal in the form of the tunnels. You can literally go into the tunnels at the start of the game, go all the way across the map within seconds, come out of the tunnel, and get into your first chase within the first 30 seconds of the game. If you're on something like lethal. Although there are a few downsides to is that one, the first thing is that proper flame turret placement can be able to shut down your power very well if you're not running any of the add-ons to mitigate the flame turrets. And also, as someone pointed out on my last tier list, the tunnels, they don't always spawn near generators. Most of them do, but there are some of them that don't spawn anywhere near generators, and they're just kind of in the middle of nowhere sometimes. So it could be a bit map dependent. Other than that, he's great. And if those restrictions were not there, he'd be an easy S tier. But as of right now, he's staying at the A tier. Next up, we're going with Oni. Oni, you have great add-ons, and whenever you get your Blood Fury up, you get your one-shot like Billy, and you get easy snowball as you get fast movement. He's basically just Myers but better. Yeah, you can deal with most loops fairly easily, and also you get access to one-shots. The only problem with Oni is that he has a very rough early game. But once you get past that early game, he is fairly strong. You will be able to get snowballs very easily. The only problem and what keeps him from S tier is his very terrible early game. As you start the game as an M1 killer, and you have to get hits. Yeah, that's gonna be it for Oni. Next up, we are going to be doing Pyramid Head. Now, he has a very great anti-loop tool with his Punishment of the Damned. You can it literally hits people through walls, and it's you also have Trail Torment, which allows you to put people in cages, and also allow you to be able to be more efficient, and also allows you to bypass most, like literally all anti-loop tools. The problems, I would say his only problem with Pyramid Head is that his add-ons suck. His add-ons are terrible. His only good add-ons are the range add-ons. Everything else is not worth running. Yeah, aside from his terrible add-ons, he is a fantastic killer, and is deserving of the A tier slot. Now, next up, we are going to be doing the twins. They did recently get buffed, so they feel a lot better to play. Yeah. The twins, A tier. All the problems that I said before, with them being clunky and slow and whatnot, those are mostly gone. With twins, you got Victor. You can go and easily get injuries and easily get a really good slugs and snowballs. The problem with twins is that if you want, you kind of have to slug and camp with her, because if you don't, you're kind of wasting time. As you would have to let's say you down someone as Victor, you then have to switch back to Charlotte, run all the way over to where Victor is, pick them up, move them all the way over to a hook, place them on that hook, and then go chase after someone else. They did also buffer by making her not be able to get kicked. Victor will no longer get kicked whenever you down someone, which I think that's very good. A very good change for twins. And also her add-ons, they're kind of just eh. Other than that, great killer. Alright, next up, we are going to be moving to Wesker, the 7-minute man. With Wesker, you have your infection mechanic, which slows survivors when at full infection. They did nerf it, so it's 4% slow instead of the 8% slow, and also they made it so whenever you hook, it resets the progress on Ouroboros. But you're not really relying on that. That's more of a like passive slowdown. The real meat and potatoes is the bound attack. It is, you get 2 charges and it's 2 dashes forward. This is very good. You can slam people into walls, throw people into walls, also infect them with Ouroboros. You're super fast, you can use it as a movement tool. Problems are he does not do well on rounded loops. Since he only dashes in a straight line, you don't do well on round loops. Like, say, someone like Chucky, who does do well on round loops, as you can hug it. With Wesker, you don't do well on round loops. Also, they got rid of a lot of the text with him, so there's that as well. His add-ons are okay. Aside from those things, he is deserving of the A tier slot. Next up, we are going to be doing artists. You got your crows. You got good intel by shooting your crows at generators. You could be able to tell what gens people are working on and which ones they aren't. You got a good anti-loop tool in the form of the crows. You can place it in a loop and force them to take a hit. You are also a 115 killer, so that also helps. The downsides to the artist is that if you're struggling to get hits with the crows, you're not going to perform well. Also, your add-ons are kind of eh. Like, you have some good ones, don't get me wrong. There is some good ones. Like, the severed hands, that's really good. And you can also get some, like, cross-map snipes. But the problem is that, you are prone to holding W. She is a very hold W killer. Where you just run to another loop. So if you just like run to another loop, there's not really much you can do about it. And that's what keeps her in the A tier. Next up, we are doing the Plague. Now with Plague, you got your Corrupt Purge and basically act as a better Legion, where you keep people broken and injured and you put people in a lose-lose situation where do you stay injured and deny her Corrupt Purge, which is definitely the strongest power in the game, or do you cleanse and let them have their Corrupt Purge? Though the problem with Plague is that if you have everyone infected and you don't have access to your Corrupt Purge, you basically become an M1 killer. Although you're 115, so that does help a bit, but you're still basically an M1 killer with no power if people don't cleanse. And also, she will struggle on maps with line of sight blockers. Like, with a lot of line of sight blockers. Not as much as killers like Huntress or Deathslinger, but she will still struggle on those maps. Also, they're very tactical, and they cleanse very far away, like on the corners of the maps. There's not really much you can do about it. Yeah, other than that, good killer. Great add-ons, and is overall just consistent. Alright, next up, we are going to be putting Spirit. Now, with Spirit, you are 110, but you have I believe you have like a smaller Terius, I think. And also, your phase tool is very good. You got passive phasing, which means people are going to struggle to tell if you're phasing or not. You can deal with most loops very quickly with your very high speed. And if you're good at listening and tracking, you could be able to get the drop on people at most loops. You will struggle on god loops. You don't deal with pallets pallets that are on-mine gameable very well. But you do deal with most loops very well, and you also have great add-ons on top of that. And that is basically Spirit. He's deserving of the A tier slot. I don't need to say anything else. Next up, we have the Huntress. Huntress is going in A as you can hit people across the map. Recently she got buffed, so you now have 7 hatchets base kit, and also they added Flower Babushka to the base kit. Although you are 110 and you have a lullaby, you have your hatchets, which can be very consistent and reliable. Just throw a hatchet at someone, they get hit. You're gonna struggle on maps with a lot of line of sight blockers like Deathslinger or Plague. And also, you can be a bit RNG reliant, like Trickster, due to the fact that you have to reload at lockers. And you also have very great add-ons, but those like weaknesses are what's keeping her in the A tier. Next up, and our final A tier is going to be the Hag. You are 110, but you have your traps, which can be very good whenever placed properly. You could place a trap at a loop, and you could force a survivor to like have to do 50-50 shit where like, oh no, does she teleport, does she not teleport? You got map traversal in the form of the teleports as well. The only downside is if the survivors follow you around and disarm your traps, there is not much you can do about it. And that's what keeps her in A tier. That if survivors follow you around and disarm the traps, there is not anything you can do about it. Alright, next up for the S tier. First, we're going with Blight. Although he has received nerfs, he is still by far an S tier. His fucking base kit makes him an A tier. His add-ons make him S tier. They are still really good. Although they removed the hug tech, you still can have great map mobility and still can deal with most loops very easily. He's still very oppressive and can absolutely wipe the floor with you. And then finally, we have the nurse. The best killer in the game. What do I need to say about Nurse? She has great add-ons. You literally bypass looping entirely through the fact you can go through walls. You have decent map traversal in the form of the blink. Like, playing Nurse is like playing a... You turn the game from a hide-and-seek tag game to a fucking point-and-click adventure. What else do I need to say? She fundamentally breaks the game in every way imaginable. And yeah, this is gonna be my tier list. If you disagree with any of this, let me know what you guys think of this. And yeah, thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all next time. Take care, everyone.